soaps for subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for your chance to be included in shoutouts for future videos. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. I placed my camera in a little bit of a different position. If you can see me, hello. I don't know if that's better. I tried to kind of do it closer than what it was before. It's significantly closer compared to how it's been in my previous videos. You probably can see. Probably stand that way. So yeah, I just thought I'll change the camera, better view, and today I'll be making my Milky Shea bar, which is coconut oil, olive oil and shea butter. And I find that just an amazing combination together. The olive oil is at 65%, the coconut oil is at 30%, and the shea butter is at 5%. So I thought I'll show a video on that today. I used to add castor oil into this recipe, but I removed it. 2 reasons. One, I find the almond recipe aside, that's perfect. That's those almond bars that I make. But I found with the Milky Shea, when I reduced the olive oil to compensate for the shea and castor, I found at 5% it was a little drying. I find when you go below 65% in cold processed soap recipes with olive oil, it tends to be on the drying side if you leave it at 5% superfat. So when you go below the 65, you have to bump up the superfat to 6%. I find that's the sweet spot. And I just found this recipe to be a little bit drying. So I removed the castor, which was 5%, and I increased 5% obviously with olive oil, and I left the shea butter the same. And I found at 5% that is really, really nice, and it's not drying whatsoever. And that's the reasoning behind why I removed castor oil. And even though castor oil is magnificent in creating a nice lather, I do add sugar in all my recipes. So the sugar, I guess, will replace the castor oil, and obviously the coconut oil is fantastic lather in any cold processed soap recipe. And so I thought those two, as well as the sodium lactate, because they're all lather boosters, those 3 together will be significantly enough to create a really, really nice lather, which by all means it really, really does. And for this recipe, I do half oat milk, half almond milk, and I've got videos on how I prepare those two. And that's what's going on in this recipe. And today I'll be scenting them with Sweet Orange-10-fold and Honeysuckle essential oil. Honeysuckle essential oil is very, very expensive, but I keep it around in my range because I absolutely love the smell. It does smell like honey, even though it's not honey. So if you are vegan and you wanted to try one of these bars, they're vegan friendly. And it's very, very floral. It's a very rich, deep, complex floral smell. If you like ylang ylang, you would like honeysuckle. They're a little similar, like I wouldn't say they're very similar, but a little similar in terms of the deep floral scent that you get when you smell it. So it'll be 3% Sweet Orange-10-fold, 1% honeysuckle, and 1% cedarwood to fix it. And it's just such a beautiful combination. It's been a very popular bar in the past. It's been out of stock for a while because I was kind of having space issues with, storing large quantities of milks, but I remedied that issue. I invested in a chest freezer, which is full of oat, almond, and coconut milk, which I prepare myself for quality purposes and, of course, cost-effective purposes because I am a small business. But I find since preparing my own milks, it is just far superior than buying store-bought, and the lather qualities and the skin conditioning and hydrating properties I have noticed a really, really big difference. And also customers have noticed a really big difference, especially with my double almond bars and my double oat bars. I have been getting a lot of positive feedback, specifically when I did make the change. And this is a great way to test. Also, I will cover this in this video. It's a great way to test if you've improved a recipe. You just make the necessary change. And generally what happens when you make a change with a recipe, if it's a positive one, you will get feedback without asking for it. So the feedback I've gotten was, well, what are you doing different with these bars? It just makes my skin feel silky soft. And I know myself why that is the case, because I have been making my own milks. And obviously it's the same if you were to make a change in your recipe and you sell your soaps and it's more on the negative side, you will receive that negative feedback and say, oh, what are you doing differently to your bars? And you might say, oh, I'm adding this or I'm adding that. And in actual fact, the reason why they're asking is because your bars are no longer conditioning as they were. So the reason why they're asking is because they want the bar that they're used to and that they love. So it's a good way to, when you make change, especially when you sell your soaps, to really listen to the customers and what they're saying and any feedback. And when you give them out of samples, to friends and family as well, sometimes you might have to ask if it's not given voluntarily. So if you're making a change and you suspect that it might be more drying or more hydrating and, overall improving your recipe, then you will ask, people that are trying it for you, is my soap more drying than it was before? Or is it more hydrating than it was before? And more often than not, they'll say to you, now that you mention it, it is more drying, or it is this, or it is that. So sometimes you do have to ask the question, because if you just ask an open question like, oh, how do you find my soaps? They'll be like, oh, good, it's really good. And then it'll stop there. But when you go the extra step and ask, is it drying? Is it this? Is it that? That's when you'll get the really raw, honest feedback. And I always assure my people I ask, or customers, you're not going to offend me if you tell me there's something that you don't like about my bars, or any sort of feedback. So I always look at it as a positive thing, not a negative thing. And myself, with this particular recipe, I found it a little on the drying side, because I do use 30% coconut oil and I don't use palm oil, so I'm trying to keep it all palm free. So it's really important to know what questions to ask. And also when you do make a change, whether positive or negative, you might also receive involuntary feedback, whether positive or negative. Just depends on who you're talking to and who you ask. And some people are more open to giving their honest feedback compared to others. Right, so touching base on what I said before about when to increase your superfat. So I find, and I'll give an example of this, with my chocolate soaps with the frosting on the top. I use 30% coconut oil, 20% cocoa butter, so that's 50%, that's not olive oil. And then, of course, the 45% olive and 5% castor. So that's what I do with my chocolate bars, and I found that extremely drying, even at 5% superfat. And the reason is, it's not so much that cocoa butter and castor oil is drying on the skin, but it reduces the conditioning properties, the overall conditioning properties of your bar. So leaving it at 5% will dry your skin out, but bumping it up to 6 or 7% will change the way the bar feels on the skin, and it will become conditioning and hydrating again. So it's important to know when to increase superfat in your recipe and why you should increase superfat. So especially with palm free, when you're formulating palm free, and olive oil is the bulk of your input. And I would say it would be the same whether you're using rice bran instead of olive oil. The only exception is when you do cocoa shea. as you've seen in my videos, how I love cocoa shea recipe, and that's 70% shea butter and 30% coconut oil. And the reason why that's okay, doing it at 3 to 5% superfat, is because by weight, between 7 and 15% of shea butter is unsaponifiables and waxy esters. So that's really, really hydrating on the skin, and it won't dry your skin out at that ratio and at that superfat level. So it's really important to know when to decrease and increase superfat. So I thought I'll just cover that quick. And that's the reasoning why I took out castor oil. So yeah, it just depends, like, the recipe, and, that's why it's important to use your soaps and get people to test your soaps out for you, so then you get honest feedback. Right, so for colouring for this recipe, I think I will do a neutral base, or with kaolin clay, white kaolin clay, Australian, and I think I might do green and pink. So I'll do 3 colours, and a big bulk would be just a neutral colour, whatever the base of the recipe, the colour turns into, which will be an off-white beige sort of colour, which is nice, and the pink and green swirls. And I'll be doing in the mould swirl, I won't be doing in the pot. So when I separate them out and colour them, I'll pour the main colour into the slab, and then I'll, as I'm pouring the other 2 colours, I'll do designs while I'm pouring it. I actually quite like in the mould swirls, especially with slab mould. It's easier to do in the mould swirls and designs, whereas those loaf moulds, you kind of are limited to kind of in the pot, or because if you want to do big swirls, you'll spill it everywhere. It's the opening is not wide enough, whereas a slab, it's open, and you can really, really just circulate it and go up and down. So really using a slab opens up more design opportunities as well. So I'll be doing those 3 colours. They go really, really nice together, which you will see at the end of the video. So I'm going to take you along with me in weighing out all my ingredients from start to finish. So I'm going to be taking you along with me throughout the entire process, weighing everything out and getting everything ready. So without wasting any more time, let's make some Milky Shea soap.